Well, hey there. I'm going to show you how to do my blaze stitch, and this is it right here. You can see it, and it's quite an interesting stitch. So it has some texture, and doesn't curl. And I did a, it's a stitch video, so I'm not going to show you how to do a project, but I can give you lots of tips so you can make something. So I just did chain cast on and 2 rows of owl eye, and then I did 2 pegs of owl eye on each side, and that just gave it a nice border here and there. And then the sides, all I did was knit them over to get this tight edge, but you can slip them if you'd like. And the yarn is Creative Melange Chunky. I'll just get the label if you wait a sec. Okay, so I have the label. I could read Creative Melange Chunky. It's 50 grams, 85 meters, and it's 57% wool, and the rest is acrylic, and it's a bulky. So it's nice. It has some really nice colors in it. It feels like it feels very much like wool. Okay. Oh, and the loom. This is a Cindy Wood loom. And it is 30 pegs. It's a 3/4 inch, so it's a wide gauge loom. Okay, so let's get started. Oh, I guess I should tell you, I marked the 2 pegs on the end here. Just put some green markers on it. These are small stitch markers for needle knitters, so they fit really nicely on the pegs. And then over here, mark these 2 pegs just so for the owl eye border. And you can use either even or odd. It doesn't matter. Both work just fine. And you can do the stitch in the round as well as a flat panel. Okay. So it's a 2-stitch pattern. And the first stitch is owl eye. So to do owl eye, we're just going to take the working yarn, go behind the peg that we're on. The peg that we're on will always be called peg 1. So we go in front of peg 1 and 2, and nice and loose, quite loose here, and we just knit that off. Okay, and then we're at peg 1 again. So we go over peg 1 and 2 and knit it off. We're at peg 1, we go over peg 1 and 2 and knit it off. On peg 1, we go over peg 1 and 2 and knit. Okay, so I do have lots of owl eye videos, and I do have a stitch video on my channel if you need to see more about owl eye. Okay, so I'm going to go and do these 2 again and knit them over. Okay, very easy stitch. And then here we are. And so I just knit over, and we're just doing an owl eye border, so we just keep going like that. Now we're going to do the second row. So first we do the owl eye border. If you're going to slip, you'd come in like this, but I'm not going to slip. I'm just going to go like this, and then we do a second stitch on this peg. There we go. Now we go into the second stitch. Now, and get this so you can see this really well. Okay, we're going to go behind the peg as if we're going to E-wrap, right? And we'll go in front just like we're going to E-wrap. But instead of knitting over, right, we're going to come over this way, under instead of over, and holding the yarn this way, we're going to go under and pick this up, loop up, and then pull that up and do a purl with the working yarn coming the way we came from. We're just going to lift that up, put it on the peg, tighten it up, okay, and then we're going to go behind and wrap like a U-wrap, but we're going to purl, or like an E-wrap, but we're going to purl. So we just purl. We have the working yarn coming this way, and it's important the working yarn comes this way, because if it goes the other way, then what you're going to be doing is my other stitch, and it looks different. So to get this look, you're going to go behind and do it like an E-wrap, but you're going to purl it. So what's happening is an E-wrap is knitting through the back loop. So when we wrap around so that we can be in the back loop, then and do a purl, we're purling through the back loop, but then the way the working yarn is facing is the treatment we're doing right here. Okay, so we come back around, do the purl, the yarn facing this way. Okay, so we come from the, we go in the back of this peg, back over here, pick up the yarn, making a loop, and there. I'm not going to show you how to purl. There's plenty of videos on purl, but I will demonstrate this nice and slow so you get this. Okay, I'm going to go behind, and we're going to go come here behind these two pegs here, and we're going to have the yarn going this way. So we're going to come down, pick it up, and just place it over like that. Come from behind, and we're going to go and do this and pick it up, put it on the peg, tighten it, come back around like this, purl it, put on the peg, come back, and this time we're on the last two pegs here, so we're going to do the owl eye border. So we go over peg 2 here, well, we'll call this peg 1, and in a U-wrap, we're going to knit it off, and then we come back over it and the end peg, knit them. We come back around and in front of both of them. That we keep this nice and loose and knit them. And then we're doing owl eye because we're back on row 1. And that's blaze stitch. So now we're going to do owl eye. I'll slow down just a bit in case you haven't seen owl eye. We're on peg 1, go over 1 and 2, knit them off. We're on peg 1, over 1 and 2, knit them off. And it's important to be loose, because if you don't, the stitch can tighten up and then you'll have a hard time having knitting it over. And it looks better when it's looser too, I think. Okay, so we're on peg 1, over 1 and 2, on peg 1, over 1 and 2. Okay, on peg 1, over 1 and 2. Okay, and we do it all the way to the end because we're doing owl eye. And we make sure this is nice and loose. Okay, now we're going into the other stitch. So again, we go over these 2 pegs, knit them off, and then you're always going to have a second knit on, so you come from behind in front towards the way you're going in a U-wrap, and just knit that. Then we're ready to start the next row. And this is the second row again. So we're going to go behind the peg, like we're going to E-wrap it, and we are going to come around, but we're going to put our loop in here before we come around, pick it up in a purl, put on the peg, snug it up, and then go behind and go behind the next one in an E-wrap motion. Put the loom hook in, pick it up, put it on, and snug it up. Okay, coming around and purling it, placing it on the peg, coming back around. Okay, can get to be quite a smooth motion. Once you get going, it goes quite fast. Just getting the stitch down. Okay. So we go behind both. We're going to put our loom hook in and do a purl with the yarn going the way we were coming from, pointing back, tighten it, and then come over. Purl it, and over, and purl it. So not too hard to do. And then we're going to come from behind and in front of this one to do the owl eye edge. Knit it over. And what I always do, because I'm going to stop and we're going to look at this again, is I always come back just to hold everything in place. It just kind of holds all the stitches in place, and we'll take a look at it now that we've done more. We're starting to get some pretty colors in here, pretty yellow coming up in here. We're going to stretch it out. When you're done, you stretch out your work. So we'll stretch it out so we can see the stitch better. There. Prop it. And there. You can see what it looks like. It's quite a pretty little stitch. I thought these looked like little blazes of fire. These little patterns in here, which is why I called it blaze. And each one of them has a lot of texture. So it's a very pretty textured stitch. Now, you probably wouldn't want to use the back. Here's what the back looks like. This is from carrying the yarn. So it's the kind of stitch that you want to do projects where you're not going to really use the back. So be great on hats, cowls, scarves are fine. Whatever you feel like you want to make with it. It has good stretch. Okay, so I'll just do one more quick 2 rows with you so you can see what it's like, and you can just watch me do them. And so this one's owl eye. So we're just doing owl eye. And then after that I'll do row 2. And you should have a good sense. I will have a link to the cast on and the bind off on my channel in the description. You go to the description box and you just scroll down and you'll see the links. I have a link to my Facebook group and my Ravelry page too on there. Okay, and here we go, finishing row 1. Okay, then we do the owl eye edge here. This is our border, and then we start into the other stitch, which I'm going to try to prop this up. Okay, we go behind, purl it with the yarn facing this way, tighten it. Oop. Propping that very well, come back down there, purl it with the yarn facing this way, behind, purl it with the yarn facing this way, behind, so see, it's not really that hard a stitch to do, and you can do it at a reasonable speed. I could do it faster once I get going, but it would be harder for you to see. I thought this one might take a little more repetition for you to see how to do it. It's quite different than most stitches you've probably done. And then we're here at the last 2. So we come in front, knit it over, and knit the 2 of them over, and then come back, and there you go. And you saw how much was done before we started. We did a few rows, and you see how much bigger it is. Growing quite quickly here. Very, very easy stitch to do, really. Although I won't say it's beginner because of the new way to do purl. Well, maybe it's somewhere between beginner and intermediate. But it's a fun stitch, and it would look really nice. Now, with a thicker yarn on a thinner gauge, you'd have a lot tighter stitch. Or if you wanted to get quite lacy and use a fine gauge, it's a really pretty lace. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, bye.